Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Bookcast, my platform for sharing short fiction and updates on life as a self-published author of romantic fiction that centers Black love. I'm D.L. White, an Atlanta-based author of 14 novels, numerous short stories, and fan fiction works, but I'm a reader first, so we usually begin with the book report, and then we talk about writing and topics of the day. This is episode 100, and apologies for the late upload this week. I absolutely forgot to plan and record a podcast episode. So I pulled together some quick and dirty details that I wanted to share for episode 100. We'll talk about my October reads, what I'm looking forward to reading in November, what I'm writing right now, and what I might get into next. Hint, I have no idea. But I do have some ideas that are always tumbling around in my head like a clothes dryer. We'll see if I get to them in the next year. But I am already, looking into 2025. And it's November. It's fourth quarter. It's election week. It's daylight saving. But everything's fine. Everything's fine. Today is Monday, November 4th. I want to get this out before we get into any Super Tuesday shenanigans. Let's celebrate while we're in a good mood. It is 12:33 p.m. Actually, I'm using my lunch hour to talk to you guys. It's gloomy in Atlanta, but I have a mic and I'm ready to dig in. So, be right back. Welcome back. We begin, as always, with the book report. I read 19 books in October, and I'm at 173 books of my challenge to read 200 books in 2024. That brings me to 86.5% of my goal for 2024, which I'm positive I might meet. I'm actually probably going to beat it because beginning like the 16th or 18th or something like that, I'm out of the office for the year. So it'll just be me and books and my trusty laptop. So yeah, I read a total of 19 books in October. 10 of those were for the Glocktober challenge. 7 of those were audiobooks. 10 were part of a collection. And 9 were standalone. Were actually some fun facts. There were 11 in the thriller mystery genre, 6 were romance, and 2 were general contemporary fiction. I do have a list of all 19 of my books. I'm not going to read through the list, but I had a pretty good run in October. I would say Glocktober wasn't like it wasn't a knockout month. It wasn't terrible, but there was nothing that's like, wow, that was so awesome. I did read one romance novel by a male romance author, Grounds for Romance by Mel Walker. So I did get that, and I always want to champion and read more male authors. So when I saw that, I snatched it right up. My other surprise in October was that I enjoyed a book by James Patterson. So that's a new thing. The book was Lies You Told Me by James Patterson, and I think David Ellis was the author. I think I spoke on that last week when I talked about my Glocktober reads. So there was that. In November, I'm reading compelling nonfiction. Caveat that I do also have the usual thrillers and romance novels. I can't go a whole month without murders and kissing. But I do want to throw in some nonfiction reads in there for Nonfiction November. I'm currently reading The Quiet Damage, QAnon and the Destruction of the American Family by Jessalyn Cook. And that focuses on 5 families affected by the conspiracy theories and their societal impact. And then I'm reading Madoff, The Final Word by Richard Behar. That explores the Bernie Madoff financial scandal. Both books seem to focus on different types of social damage. One examining the personal family impact of conspiracy theories, which I'm deeply into. And the other looks at financial fraud and its consequences. They're both super timely choices for understanding modern American history and current events. Plus, they're a little bit dramatic and intriguing as far as nonfiction goes. Overlapping themes. I didn't come up with any of these myself. It's a gathering of random stuff on the internet. Trust and deception, family breakdown, mass delusion and denial, vulnerabilities in society, physiological, psychological manipulation, aftermath and recovery of devastation, and of course, red flags for the future. I'm all up in it. If I read nonfiction at all, it's usually along this vein. I'm excited to get into November. For the rest of the month, I curated a great list of about 20 books to choose from. Of course, among the thrillers and romance, which are always on for me. I'm going to include my list of October reads and my curated list of nonfiction reads in my show notes. Feel free to look those up on my Substack. It's authordlwhite.substack.com. Click on podcasts. It'll be there in my show notes. Also on my website at booksbydlwhite.com/podcast. booksbydlwhite.com/bookcast/100. Those lists will be there. I got a good list. A few themes or groupings, strong focus on investigation and justice, cold cases, some contemporary investigations, some historical inquiries. I have societal impact stories like QAnon, political lies, financial corporate crime, racial justice, personal narratives like memoir, investigative journalism. So I have, I think, some exciting stuff coming up. So we'll see how it goes. And of course, I will report as I am reading them and listening to them. So far, the QAnon book is pretty good. It makes me sad. I find stories where families are being torn apart by this kind of thing to be remarkably sad. So I'm digging it, and I can't wait to get to the Madoff book because I'm obsessed with Bertie Madoff. Just truly obsessed. So moving on to the writing and publishing updates. This is episode 100. I have evolved this podcast from reading my own work, my own books aloud in my closet as practice for reading the Never List aloud for the podcast to sharing the full journey of being an indie author. Episodes 1 through 12 are unexpected. Second time around, I think the Kwanzaa brunch comes in there, and then I read some of the samples from the Never List. Those were all really just practice to get me used to being in front of the microphone, and it basically has transformed from reading some of my work because I had time. This was heavily during the beginning of the pandemic. I had time and I needed to stop watching the news. So it definitely transformed into behind the scenes of an author life. I found my voice here between structured content and casual chats. This podcast, the Bookcast, quote unquote, has really lived up to its meaning. I talk a lot about books. I talk a lot about writing. I talk a lot about what the writing means to me. And I've celebrated a lot here on this podcast. I have written 6 books on this podcast, 4 to 6 books. I recorded the Never List samples, episodes 12 through 15, my How I Write series, which is episodes 74 through 77. I talked about, my experiences at Essence Fest, episode 37 and episode 90. I have talked about my writing retreats, specifically episode 79. I have talked about my writing journey. Episode 45 is I was so excited because I had made Words, which was basically the first book that I wrote after 2 years of burnout. I want to say that was Hey Lover. I talk about burnout, episode 30, betas and burnout. I talk about just needing to vent. Sometimes I just get on this microphone and I have things I need to say. Episode 57 is just me venting. And then episode 84 was me finishing, I forget what book it was. I want to say Elysium, perhaps. I'm not sure. There's a lot of growth here in this podcast. I've learned to balance my reading updates and my writing journey here. I really fell into a good rhythm with talking about my the reading challenge, pulling myself through writing challenges, whether it's NaNoWriMo, which I'm never doing again, or 20K in 5 days, getting comfortable with scripted versus unscripted content, building confidence and sharing the messier parts of my author life, and really just trying to be real and authentic here. If there are aspiring authors or new authors, I want them to know what it's really like being behind this mic, writing 15 novels and really trying to push myself really towards 20, because 20 is like my first big goal. So I'm like, honestly, 4 books. If we were talking real talk, 3 to 4 books away from hitting my goal of 20 published books. Most of all, I have been connecting with listeners about the shared experience of being an author here on this podcast. I've shared the reality, I've shared the balance, I've shared my marketing challenges and my victories with paid ads, with what do they call them? Newsletter ads like the Fussy Librarian, e-reader news today, even BookBub ads. I have kept it real about all of that, how much it cost me, how much I profited when I stopped doing ads because I was spending more than I was making. I'm currently making. And I've talked a lot about the lessons that I have learned. Specifically, some of my unplanned episodes are the best ones. How being authentic resonates more than being polished. The value of documenting our journey here, like being able to go back and like listen to how I was struggling reading or writing Hey Lover, or writing The Never List, which was the first full book that I wrote here on the podcast with you all, and how podcasting has influenced my writing process. When I'm writing, am I thinking about how am I going to share this with my audience? What do I need to remember as I'm writing? And what I've learned about my readers and my listeners here. I have a lot of writers that listen to this podcast. And I have some of my like die-hard readers that also listen to this podcast. So it's been a journey of 100 episodes. Looking forward, I don't so much have goals for this podcast. I don't know how the content is going to evolve. I don't know, like new segments. Like I feel like I just revamped the podcast a little bit so I can have like a little bit of stability going forward, so I know where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. I need a routine, and I don't want to upend that routine every month, every 6 months, every 8 months, every 100 episodes. I just need a steady routine to be able to push me forward and to settle into. I do want to grow my podcast community, and I don't know really how to manage that, because I feel like I'm spread among a couple. I put the podcast on my website at Bookcast. I also have it on Substack because there's an audience there that doesn't know me, has never heard of me. They don't follow me anywhere else. Like Substack is it. I have a community on my Instagram. I'm not so much on Twitter, but like it's just shenanigans over there. I do want like one central place to like cultivate and grow my community. I did try Buy Me a Coffee. I did for a very short period of time, had an author group. It wasn't giving. It wasn't giving. It was one more thing to update, one more thing to keep up on. And I also did not have the following that I thought I had needed to sustain that group. I was paying to keep it open. There were like maybe 30 people in there, and there were people I didn't know. So I have maintained the past couple of years that I'm just not the type of author to have a group, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a community. So I think maybe in 2025, I just think about a way to cultivate the community that I have here at the Bookcast and find one central place to keep all that stuff. I had a list here, like to touch on some personal points, like favorite episodes to record, moments that surprised me, how the podcast has affected my writing journey. I don't have that top of mind, but as those come out in the next 3 episodes, I will be sure to highlight them. But most of all, I want to thank the listeners. I want to thank the people that always comment, Robert, Justice, Kay, the reader. There's one other person that always comments on YouTube, but the name totally escapes me. Jason Graham will always send me a message. Jessica will always comment on Instagram when she listens to the podcast. My editor, Kai, will also send me a note, especially when I'm about to announce a brand new book on the podcast that I haven't told her about. So this platform is super important to me. It really has become like a place for me to vent and to download and to share what it means to me to be an independent author, how I am making that happen, how I am bringing my words and my work to the masses and how I can work to do that better. As I'm looking at other authors and seeing what they're doing and evaluating if that could work for me, I'm vocalizing that on the podcast and bringing that to my audience. And hopefully it gives people an idea of what I'm doing could work for them. So hopefully the next 100 episodes will be just as exciting as the first 100 have been. I don't have any special plans or changes coming up, but guaranteed if something's not working, I'm going to change it. I have written, I believe, 6 books on this podcast from 2020 to present. I released The Guy Next Door in audio in March of 2020. That was a very busy year for me. I also released a second edition of A Thin Line in March of 2020. I released The Never List in September of 2020. Hey Lover, December 31, 2022. I had 2 years. I went 2 years without publishing a book. I wrote Elysium in August of 2023, Home for the Holidays in December of 2023. I wrote The Pearl at Black Diamond in June of 2024, and then Calculated Risk I am writing and releasing in 2024. And then I am I'm trying to write a little holiday short. Calculated Risk is off to the editor, so I'm writing The Festival at Evergreen Falls. That's my working title as a distraction and something to kind of keep me busy and out of Calculated Risk. I'm aiming for it to be short, like 8 to 10 chapters. We'll see how it goes. It's coming out super cute, a little bit like a Lifetime or Hallmark movie, like kind of funny, fun, quirky, warm, sappy, full of holiday goodness. Hope I can finish it, but I am absolutely pantsing this novel. So we'll see where we end up. So looking forward into 2025. I know I mentioned on a previous episode, it'll be my 10th year anniversary as a published author, and going into that with 15 books written feels good. Feels really, really good. I have a couple of series books that I've been tossing around. 2 books I wanted to add to the Ruby series is Drinks at Minx, which is a true follow-up to Ruby's. I've had that. It's been 10 years since I wrote Brunch at Ruby's, so I don't know if more Ruby's books are coming, specifically more books that follow up on those 3 ladies, but it's on the list. And then Missing Persons features Yvette, who is the private investigator from Dinner at Sam's. I've had a book brewing for her. She's a private investigator, and I wanted it to be like my foray into romantic suspense. We'll see if I can get that written. I already know Robert is going to email me about it and encourage me to write it because he wants me to be on Crime Writers of Color. We'll see. We'll see. It's been, I have a few chapters written and then I got stuck. We'll see. I have said that before. A couple of Potter Lake ads, Still I Rise, which is Brenda Bell and her. Brenda Bell is the daughter of Helen, who we met in, she's been in every Potter Lake book, actually, I think. And then her hero, I think his name is Kingston. I don't know if that's coming, but it's in the works. I did start something with Tamara and Eric, but I don't quite know if it's going to happen. And I also had a question mark on a historical based in Potter Lake, which would feature Erlene and Grandy. I feel like I'm going to have to be in the mood to write that. I'm not a historical fiction writer. I would have to be deep into reading my historical fiction, like dig into my my Beverly Jenkins and my Dr. Vanessa Riley and my Piper Hughley. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's on the list. And then I was going to do an extended epilogue for The Never List, which I started and I just couldn't get it to work. But we'll see. And then Home for the Holidays, maybe. I had an epilogue planned for that book, but an epilogue for a short might just be too much work. So I am thinking about incorporating it into Still I Rise, which would give us an update on Reed and Sabrina. I don't know. I have too much going on, and sometimes the series really wear me out, and I want to write new characters, new people, because that gives me juice. You know what I'm saying? Then when I'm tired of new people, I run back to the series because those are comfortable. Like I need a summer book to start in January. Like, am I gonna do a Potter Lake book in the summer? So like I've got to start writing that in January or February if it's going to be out in June, July, or August. So I got to decide here pretty soon. New characters I'm thinking of. I've said before, I've had this sisters trilogy in my mind. The Berkeley sisters, Frankie, Francel, Rocky, Raquel, and Charlie Sherrill. In my mind, they're three Black women who were adopted when they were children by a white couple. Each book, it will feature one of the sisters, but book one gives the sisters an inheritance from their grandparent, which will give them the freedom to make things happen in their lives. And then there's an overarching theme across the books of the girls searching for their birth family. I started book one. I hit a wall. And then I didn't know what to do with it. So I would like to dig into that and like dig it out and like really put some effort into getting it going, write that during all of 2025 and then make me release those in 2026. I don't know. I'm not very motivated by writing a 3-book series and then not releasing them all at once, but having them written and ready to go. But, I don't know. I'm 50 now. I'm slowing down, so I could maybe get myself to do that. And then I had an idea for A Christmas Past, which was a previous fan fiction, which a holiday book about two people who run into each other so many years after they met for the first time. He doesn't remember her, but she remembers him. So that's pretty much it, like as far as ideas for upcoming, but like that's more than enough, because as I read and as I'm writing and as I listen to music and watch movies, I get ideas and, I might write those down and jot them out, sketch them out, see if they have any oomph, if they have any staying power, if they give me any kind of energy. And then, I don't know, we'll try to make something happen. There's definitely more books coming because I got to get to 20. You know what I'm saying? Super quick, my last point, appearances. I will be at the Snellville Book Festival in November 9th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Look up the Snellville Book Festival. I know they have an Instagram account and they have a Facebook account, and you can search them up on the web. I don't have the address handy, but I'll put it in the show notes. Bring book money, bring your debit card. I will be there. Come and buy books if you are local, or just come look around. There's going to be like 100 authors there. Super, very, very, very super excited about it. I bought my little, like a table runner for my book, and I have my signs all printed. I don't know where my little, credit card thing is. So I have to figure that out. I'm going to be reading like a little 5-minute piece. I got to decide what I'm reading. No clue. I don't know. Why did I volunteer for that? I don't know. So that was a lot in about 20 minutes, 23-ish minutes. Let's see if I can get out in 25 minutes because I have to edit this and get it up, and then I have a meeting at 3. So that was a lot. I am hoping the next 100 episodes are as rewarding and life/career changing as the first 100 have been. I cannot end this podcast without thanking all of you for being here, for being in my corner, for listening to this episodes. Whether you are brand new today or if you have an OG, you have been here since episode 1. I thank you so much. I have loved sharing this podcast with you and having you here to gawk at me while doing this thing over and over and over. I welcome any comments or feedback you might have at booksbydalewhite.com/bookcast/100. I'm also, as I said, on Substack. It's authordalewhite.com, authordalewhite.substack.com. Hit podcast. I'll be there. You can also find full show notes, links to all the things I've talked about if relevant, and a transcript for today's show. You can find all of the important links at booksbydalewhite.com/link in bio. Please share this podcast if you enjoyed this episode. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give a girl a rating. I would really, really, really appreciate it. And do not forget that you can support this podcast with your book purchases at payhip.com/booksbydalewhite by spreading the good word by joining my newsletter or the Substack at booksbydalewhite.com/link in bio. You can find links to everything at that link. You can also throw some coins in the hat at bookcast.buzzsprout.com. I'm rushing because I'm trying to get off this microphone before my lunch ends. Thank you so much to my monthly supporters. Your gift covers my current Buzzsprout subscription, and I really, really appreciate the support. Every little bit really does help. This podcast is written, produced, and edited by me, DL White. Can you tell? Our theme music and any sound effects are provided by Pixabay. I will be back next week for sure. Maybe on time. Until then, have the best week ever. Take care of yourself, and we'll chat again soon. Bye-bye.